All right, today we are going to have a blast because I can't talk to this cat without laughing till my guts hurt. And it's a familiar voice, and if you guys could see what I'm seeing, it's a familiar face, even though it hurts a little bit.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful. But we have got none other than Mr. Brent Reaves on with us today. How's everything down in the Arkansas?
Man, everything's great down here. Can you see this creeping coon dog behind me?
No. If you can see the shepherd laying at my feet and hear him, I see him on the bed now.
Yeah, I felt somebody staring at me. I turned around and look, and there's old Waylon. Man, we're doing great down here. It's summertime, and I absolutely hate it. It's hot. I went coon hunting the other night, and it was like getting scalded. It was just so hot. Mosquitoes was bad, but
how do you keep the mosquitoes from carrying you away? That's what I want to know.
Eat enough biscuits to make it hard. Cornbread and beans to keep the mosquitoes from toting you plumb off.
They got to have a Huey to lift you and take you, don't they?
That's right. They ain't that coordinated.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, the humidity kills me. Like, I can't stand to step outside and just break out in a drenching sweat.
Man, back when I was was wearing a uniform, being the police, I spend 2 hours a night shining my boots. Spit shine, so they just look good. And you step out of the car that first morning on that first traffic stop, and it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's 87 degrees, and it looks like you're shining with a Hershey bar when you get back in the car. It's just terrible. Terrible.
Yeah. Now, I did a track here a couple weeks ago on a guy, and I didn't switch my vest out. We've got the pullovers now, and the plate or the carriers. So I didn't switch it out and put my tracking vest on because I got in such a hurry. And of course, I don't know however long this took. We went really up the side of the mountain, and I guess we were gaining. He had his 4-wheel drive Crocs on. I know I mentioned that before. He had them things laced up tight. And when I got back to the car and I unzipped my vest and pulled it off, it looked like I had been in a sauna. I mean, the steam just rolled out of that thing. So I had to come home, take everything off of it, wash it to start with. And, of course, when you put your stuff back together, it never fits the same.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so uncomfortable. Then it took me 2 more days to break it back in. But
Heath, I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell Clay about when he's like, man, let's go coon hunting in the mountains, or let's do anything in the mountains. And I'm like, man, you can do stuff here on the flat ground. We got bad guys down here where the ground's flat. You ain't got to chase them up and down them hills. That's crazy. Let them folks go. Just let them go.
Oh, yeah. I can't. That's what that's what we just sit here and listen to a pursuit on my radio.
Yeah.
Brett's like, man, I don't miss that at all. And I'm like, oh man, it still gets my heart pumping. Like I love it when people run because it's a challenge. Like, how far can you go and can you get away from me?
Yeah.
I'm about to the end of those days though. I'm going to be chasing something else. Bear, coons, muskies. So what about Waylon the Wonder Dog laying there on the bed? No wonder you don't have nowhere to sleep.
Yeah, this is the room where I do all my podcast stuff, recording and writing up here. And it was my son's room. He got old enough to get out in college and get out on his own, but I've kind of turned it into my studio. But Waylon comes up here if I'm working on the podcast, and he just chills out, hangs out. He's doing good. He'll be 4 August 15th. He'll be 4 years old. I got him when he was, I think, right at 6 months old. He treated his first coon by himself when he was either 8 or 9 months. I can't remember. From start to finish, striking a track and treating him by himself. I think he was 9 months old. And man, I tell you, it has been an absolute pleasure and a joy to mess with this dog, train this dog. I used to coon hunt a lot when I was a kid, and during a lot of my heavy law enforcement work, part of my career, well, I just wasn't able to dedicate the time to even justify having a dog. much less getting one to train. So I've got a gap. I've got a big gap in my coon hunting career that lasted for over 20 years. So when my career kind of slowed down a little bit, that I could, justify getting another dog and being able to hunt him and put him to good use, I absolutely won the lottery when I got this dog. He's been easy to train. A lot of it's just natural, and man, he's a member that it's a good thing he can tree a coon. I've told a million people, because when I brought him home, he was never leaving. Because my wife Alexis and my little girl Bailey, they loved him from the time he walked in the door. So it's very fortunate for me that he can tree a coon and kind of earn his feed, because like I said, he wasn't going to leave here.
Well, it's funny because when you post him on Instagram, I've never seen a dog that has his own air conditioning unit in his doghouse. He's either on the couch or in his air conditioned condo. Like, it beats anything I ever seen.
Alexis and I were sitting out there on the patio. It was hot now, but I had some stuff on the grill, and she said, "Look at your dog. Anytime he's doing something stupid, he's my dog, and anytime, all the rest of the time, it's her coon dog." But she said, "I want you to look at your dog." I looked out there, and I guess his hind end was hot, because he had his hind end backed up in the door of that in that doghouse. And the air conditioner was running, and then he'd turn around a little bit and run his head in there for a while, and then come back and visit us. But he's got a air conditioner on one side that runs off a thermostat, and a heater on the other. So it never gets colder than 55 his doghouse, or warmer than 75.
He was cooling his running gears, what he was doing.
I guess so.
He had that tranny backed up in there ready to roll, didn't he?
Yeah. He was ready. He stays ready.
So, I mean, as hot as it is down there, I know we've talked about this off and on before, but as hot as it is down there, do you hunt much in the summer, or you just kind of give it a break until fall rolls around?
Man, I don't hunt near as much. Now, when I was training him, Heath, I got that dog in, I think it was on my birthday, March the 13th or 14th, right before COVID really started in 2020. Right, I mean, just before it kicked off here in Arkansas. Matter of fact, that same week that I got him is when they started shutting the schools down, and all that big thing started. So I started hunting him that spring, and I hunted him all through the summer, and I was hunting. I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of public land here in Arkansas and a lot of private land that I have access to. And I've got public land that is literally 15 minutes from my house, 7,000 or 8,000 acres. And I could go over there, and I would hunt literally every night, or almost every night. You could bet 5 out of 7 nights for an hour or two, I'd take that dog over there and hunt him. And that summer and the summer after that, those first 2 years that we had him, I hunted that joker easily. Out of 365 days, I would say I at least hunted him half of them, a lot. I hunted him a lot. And I wasn't doing a whole lot other than giving him an opportunity to get out there and do his thing, So to answer your question, during those 2 years in the summertime, I hunted a lot. Since then, no. If it's too hot, Brent ain't going.
Yeah, well, you got too many other irons in the fire now, making it big time.
Yeah. I'm pretty busy, that's for sure.
Yeah. I know I kept up with you when you were training him, and I know we had talked back and forth some, but yeah, it's amazing he's 4 already. Like, it's kind of crazy to think that.
Yeah, it doesn't take long. Yeah.
The dogs. I know you and I were on the phone the other day, and we were chit-chatting, and somebody come and knocked on my door, and it was a little girl, a college kid. They board horses here beside me, and she come over and she goes, "Hey, can I get my stuff out of your yard?" And, Brent started laughing, and I've got my little 5-month-old pup. I call her Sassy. She is the thief. I mean, a thief. She had got that girl's fly mask. She had got her lead and her grooming brush, and got them all over here in the yard while she was turned around untacking her horse. Like, I don't know how she does it. And it's funny because they're shoeing horses down there today. And she come to the fence and asked me if I'd put her up while they were shoeing the horses. I'm like, well, honey, she carried them horseshoes off. She's more than I can handle.
Does she chew them up or just go grab them?
Well, she was chewing stuff up. Now I don't know. She just brings it over here, drops it in the yard. It's like, if you're missing something, it's probably in my yard because she stole it. I don't know where she gets it from. Like, I don't know how she does what she does, but she gets that stuff so fast. And it's a good, from where they've got their tack room, I mean, it's a good 100 yards from my house, from my yard to the tack room where they've got their little turnout and everything there. So she's grabbing that stuff, getting under the fence, bringing it up here to the building, and then I guess she's going back and getting it 2 or 3 times. I don't know what she did, but
well, keep an eye out. I lost a class ring in 1985. I was squirrel hunting on Beach Creek, south of Warren, Arkansas. So if you run across a class ring that's got my initials on it, just give me a holler.
Yeah, I'll do. Well, if it turns up here, and there's a good chance that it might, because I've kind of had to be sneaky about it. Some of the stuff that she tore up, I just put in the trash can, threw it away, and I know that my neighbors, Chloe and him, was like, wonder what happened to that brush, because she's chewed up 2 of their brushes, and there was some leather straps that had come off of their saddle. They do the hunter jumper stuff, so they've got the jumps and stuff set up down here. And there was a bunch of leather straps that she had chewed up, and I'm just like, Lord, dog, just leave them alone. You can go down there and visit, do whatever, and everybody loves her. I mean, when they're down there, everybody's petting on her and loving on her. Little do they know.
She's eyeballing stuff.
That's what she's down there scoping it out. Oh, that's crazy. But oh well, that's dogs for you. What else is good in your world, Brent? What?
Well, I'm doing this podcast now for MeatEater called This Country Life, and man, it has been so much fun. It was really, it's kind of a funny story the way it all started. Clay and I were talking, and I've been helping him for years. You know, I used to film for him full time, or anytime that he had a project going with Bear Hunt Magazine, I was usually running the camera for him, or for a lot of it. And he then went to work for MeatEater and was doing his podcast, and I've been involved with that. On Clay does a historical informational podcast, you know, Bear Grease podcast, and then if that comes out this week, then the next week we'll record what's called a Bear Grease Render, where we talk about all the stuff that he couldn't maybe fit into that technical and historical episode, and we'll talk about the stuff that, you know, what we got out of it, what our thoughts on whatever the subject was. So about every other week I've been recording with him, and it got those renders got to be pretty popular, and Alexis and Clay and my wife Alexis and Clay and his wife Misty, where we were eating supper one night up in Fayetteville, and while we were sitting there having supper, Clay just said, man, you ought to do your own podcast. And I said, well, I couldn't do the stuff that he does. I mean, if there was a guy tailor-made for that, the historical informational type podcast, it's Clay. And he said, well, you ain't got to do one like that. He said, I'm doing one like this. What do you know? Well, of course I know law enforcement, but that's the last thing I want to talk about. And I can't wait till I don't have to talk about any of it. But I said, well, man, country living, that's about all I know about. And he said, well, there you go. That's it. And we sat there around the supper table and talked for an hour, and pretty well Misty had ideas about it. Alexis had great ideas about it, and we pretty well had the format down when we got up to pay the check and leave. And at that time, that was almost a year. Well, it was a year ago. MeatEater was taking some in-house applications or ideas for new shows, and I just filled out a sheet that had questions on there, who would host it, what the topics would be, the length and all that kind of stuff. And we sent it in, and they liked the idea. They wanted 4 mock episodes. So I recorded. I'm just like, what do you want them? How do you want them? They're like, no, that's up to you. You do it. You figure it out. So there's been a little bit of tweaking here and there, but more or less is what we talked about that night. And if for folks that hadn't heard it, it's on the Bear Grease podcast feed. You just subscribe to it, and every Friday it'll download. I'm working on the 11th episode, I think, now, and they're usually about 25 minutes long. I'll start it out with a story where it may relate to the subject we're talking about, or it may not. It may be something totally different. But it's just story. They're I think good stories that I like to hear, so I tell them all the time. But it's a look at just country living. I've done them on country vehicles. The kind of vehicles that we use out in the woods and to get around on the farm. And I've done them about how to pick out a squirrel dog, and what is a squirrel dog. I've done them about the stuff that I tote in my overalls.
The knife.
Pocket knives and
frog gigging.
Frog gigging. There's been all kind of stuff, and it's the subject matter is literally
country living.
Yeah, it's anything.
It is.
It could be from making cornbread to catching fish. You
had done. You did the catfish fry, because I sent you a picture of me pulling the trot line in. I said, come on, Reeves, get you some.
I talked about, catching fish with a trot line, and it could be anything, and I get so many. It's been very, very well received, and it's done exceptionally well. The folks at MeatEater are just absolutely tickled about how well it's doing, and I couldn't be any more surprised that anybody would be interested in listening to it. But a lot of folks identify with it, and I get messages and texts from people from literally all over the world, Australia and Scotland and England. My good friend Adam Dean over in England, I talk to him all the time anyway, but I get messages from people that live in New York. I got one from a guy lived in New York City the other day, that, as far as I can tell, had the only woods he's ever been in may have been Central Park. Yeah, but he's loving it, you know, and it reminded him of an old or a simpler time, or maybe, what his grandparents talked about or whatever. Anyway, there's something hopefully identifiable in it with everyone, and you can listen to it with your whole family. You ain't got to worry about, language or subject matter being off color or out of bounds, I guess. So hopefully, people identify with it. I had a lady text me that said that they listened to it on Friday night when they all sat down at the supper table to eat. They would sit there and listen to me ramble on about whatever it was I'm rambling on that week. So in that aspect, if it's getting folks together, families that sit down at the supper table and talk amongst themselves, man, it's worth all the effort that it takes to put it out there. And I can't say enough about the folks at MeatEater that produce it. Hayden Samick is the main guy that works on mine. He's a sound engineer and longtime employee up there, and absolute great guy. And they get it, man. They produce a very good product, and they're sticklers for making it right and very professional. And I'm very proud to be working with them, and very humble, very grateful, very blessed to be there. So it's a great place. Plus, I get to go to Bozeman, Montana and fly fish, so that's pretty sporty.
Yeah, have you seen that reel that they put out talking about the what do they call it, like fruit and granola, trying to throw a fly out in the water, and then somebody's pulling up some shark type fish, and like, now this is fishing. I think about that every time, because when I go out west, my goal, I think I said it on a podcast before when I come back from Yellowstone last year, I'd like to go out there and take a 3 to 5 day trip just fishing those rivers because I love to fish and it's beautiful. But I think that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And I seen Adam was sporting one of your bear greases.
Yeah.
And then somebody, I don't know if it was you or Clay, had posted the dude in the baseball stadium. I don't know who. I don't keep up with baseball, so I don't know who it was. But yeah, he was sitting like the third row up and had the bear grease hat on.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, man. It's become like its own club, I guess. Yeah, I've met 1 million people wearing that bear grease hat.
It's a cult, Brent.
That may be what it is. If they start handing out purple tennis shoes, I'm out. But yeah, it's pretty cool that people identify with that. You know, I've had folks say that they send me pictures in the DFW airport. You know, you can look across 200 people. And he's got a guy's head circled is wearing a bear grease hat. I've had folks come up to me if I'm wearing it and like, man, that podcast is great. I love listening to that. I love listening to that bear grease podcast. I'm like, what do you think about the render? I don't know. I ain't never listened to that. And I'm like, well, you are too. It's pretty good. And they just keep on talking. But it's funny. It's, you know, it means something to folks, and it's good, man. It's just, there ain't nothing bad about it. Getting people together and having a good time, you can't beat it.
Can't go wrong. I know you and I were talking the other day, and I know this is a hound hunting or a dog training, hound training podcast, but we're going to go off the rails today and just have a good time, because every time that I'm on the phone with Brent, we laugh and cut up, and, you know, so many similarities and how our paths crossed and all that. But, you know, we were talking the other day about country living, and we were talking about my freezer being full, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, what was it you said? Like, I've got 3 freezers plumb full. I've got beef in one. I've got a small freezer with all of our wild game and what fish I can put in there. And then the third freezer has got a mixture of everything in it. And we were talking about, like, man, that's like a highlight of life, that I got a freezer full of stuff, don't even have to go to the store.
Yeah, I'm at the point in my life where a good tree dog, a good seasoned iron skillet, and a freezer full of deer and bear meat. I mean, I got the world by the tail, man.
You said that you'd found some bear in there that you didn't even know you had.
Didn't even know I had. Defrosted my freezer, turned that thing up, got a big Yeti cooler, and got all the stuff out of it that was in there. And Alexis and I are digging around the bottom. She starts pulling out packages. I'm like, hold. She said, bear TL, what's that? I'm like, baby, that's gold. That's bear tenderloin. I said, we're going to put that on the top of the stack when we get this thing defrosted. So, yeah.
That's what I got in the crock pot right now.
It was like, I'll tell you what it was like. For folks and most of the folks that listen to this, I guarantee you can't relate. But it's like grabbing a winter coat first time and putting your hand in the pocket and finding a $10 bill in there.
It's like, where'd that come from?
Oh, it's been just laying in there waiting for you to find.
That's right. Yeah. That's exactly right. But we have been taking, because I'm not a big fan of the bear steaks. For whatever reason, I'm just not crazy about them. So we've been taking the steaks and putting them in the crock pot and then doing like a pulled pork in tacos.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually got that. If you guys go back and listen to From Field to Plate with the Chef Shelley, she was the one that kind of mentioned that, and I actually put it in the show notes, some of her taco recipes, but we were off script talking, and she was like, well, just do it this way, and you'll probably see a huge difference. And I did, and so we're taking all the steaks that we have, and that's what I'm doing. I put them in a crock pot, doing them like pulled pork, and eating those things on taco. We having bear tacos tonight.
Oh man, that's good. I tell you, my wife and little girl, they could eat tacos every day. They love Mexican food.
What is it with women? They love it.
I don't know, man. My wife she's a Texican. She's from Texas, and she could eat 3 meals a day.
Tex-Mex.
She absolutely loves Mexican food.
The Journey on Houndsman XP has teamed up with One TDC. This dual action support for oral health and mobility in our dogs. This unique supplement is so effective that it is recommended by top veterinarian experts worldwide to maintain and improve our dog's health in 4 different areas: their oral health, hips, joints, and muscles, skin, coat, energy, and recovery. Guys, I've been using this product for the last 6 months, and it has been a game changer for me. If you're looking for something to help with the overall health of your dog, go to worksowell.com and give this product a try. It is highly recommended by Houndsman XP here on The Journey. Do you like to be outside like I do? Hunting, fishing, hiking? If so, Onyx is the app for you. I've been a loyal Onyx user for years. It's the one app that I can honestly say I use daily. While hunting, I know where I'm at all times. I mark trails, bedding areas, feeding areas, and the list goes on. In my travels, I use it to pre-scout all the new places that I am blessed to hunt. Last year while hiking Yellowstone, I used Onyx to map out the trails and know the difficulty of each one. And here's a secret. I mark all of my favorite fishing spots on Onyx. It's been a game changer for me at work. I've used it multiple times to get in touch with property owners. Onyx has so many great features and tools, you can literally use it in your everyday life. It is by far the best mapping app on the market. And hey, it's approved by yours truly at Houndsman XP. So when you go to subscribe to Onyx, use our code HXP20 and get you a discount. So get your journey started with Onyx and know where you stand.
But yeah, that's a great idea. Now, Bailey, my little girl, would rather Alexis. She's not so keen on wild game. Like I had some pork ribs. A buddy of mine, Corey Eisenhower, he's a fireman and he's got a taxidermy studio. He gave me some pork ribs that on a hog he'd killed. And I had them on smoker, and Alexis walks out there and said, "What are you cooking for supper?" And I rolled that top up. She said, "Oh, those ribs look great. What kind of animal did that come off of?" Because she never knows.
Just eat it. Just eat it.
You know? So she's not so crazy about wild game, but Bailey, my gosh, that kid will eat it. She would rather eat bear chili, bear steak than anything.
Really?
I mean, you ask her what her favorite meal is, and it's bear chili, and she could eat it in the middle of August. She loves it.
So while you're talking about that, I want to talk about this real quick. So when I was doing my thing with Chef Shelley, she talked about the adrenaline in the game when you take the animal, harvest the animal. Of course, we run with dogs, so there is that element where you guys are, bow hunting strict mostly, right?
Yeah.
I kind of wonder, I would really like to exchange some of that and find out if it has a different taste to it, because I've never eaten one that was harvested without dogs ever.
Yeah, that absolutely might make a difference. I'm sure it does. The diet of your bears and our bears down here in Arkansas are going to be really similar. Acorns and berries and stuff like that. So the part that would be different would absolutely be how you take them, because I've killed the bears that I've killed here in Arkansas. The furthest one I think ran maybe 60-70 yards, and most of them were dead just right there within 30.
Yep. Yeah.
So I guarantee you there's absolutely a change there in how it tastes. I would assume.
Yeah. Yeah. She said she was very adamant about it. Yeah. And something with Alexis, you should tell her that Chef Shelley said that the bear was so similar to the pork that it has this, and she talked about adding the spices and stuff that like they do to the pork. So maybe you can play that off and say, "Hey, that's just a pig."
Man, it's all in her head, because I have fed that gal bear meat before, and she didn't. It was fajitas, I think. It was bear meat fajitas, and she was eating it up like it was the last meal before she went to sit in the electric chair. She was eating it up, and I never told her any different. And so it's all in her head, you know. She and bless her heart, she'll try anything. When we first got married, she was like, I said, "You gonna try some squirrels?" She's like, "Oh yeah, I'll try them." Well, that was 12 or 13 years ago. However, I can't do the math in my head real quick from that we've been married. And now if you mention squirrels, she's like, negative, I'm out. So she don't have to impress me anymore. She's not eating squirrels or anything like that. But she tried it for a while. But like I said, Bailey is just the opposite. She'll
eat anything.
She'll eat anything. You catch. We went frog gigging the other night. I did a podcast on This Country Life about frog gigging, so I needed a couple frogs to do a skinning demonstration, you know, for Instagram. And I figured I'd get two. I'd at least get one video good enough to put on there. So me and Michael Roseman go out and just past his house and gig a couple frogs, and I brought them back and we skinned them, and I filmed all that. And then the next night, me and I got Bailey to help me fry them up, and the first bite that she took that's on that video is the first time she's ever held a frog leg in her hand. And buddy, she went to it like a duck on a roasting ear. She was eating it up. Yeah.
Well, wait a second. Did you freeze them before you fried them?
No, I didn't.
Oh, mama gonna be mad.
Yeah, that was my mama's deal there. No, she didn't like them frogs kicking around in the skillet. So
yeah. I remember doing that when I was a kid too. Like, I remember it.
To make them, you pour, and what Heath is talking about, and I talked about it in that podcast, is my mother would cook all the frog legs that we could eat, but she wanted them to come out of the freezer because if they're fresh, they still got some living cells in those legs, and it'll react to stimulus. You can take a fresh skinned frog leg and lay it on a plate and pour a little salt on it, and it'll start wiggling and twitching around. Or you put one in the skillet, and it'll start wiggling too, like it's alive. And it's kind of weird for sure. But my mama, man, she didn't like that at all.
What about snake? You ever eat snake?
I have not. Now my brother has. I just ain't never been that hungry. And if I got enough, I probably would. My brother killed a big old rattlesnake one time, and his boys, well, they're grown and gone, got families of their own now, but that time they were still in school, and they had a little boy that lived down the road that would come down and play with my youngest nephew, Will. And this boy they was out there playing in the yard, and they called the youngest to come in to eat supper, and they walked in there, and he said, "What is that?" And my brother told me, "Well, that's that rattlesnake I killed earlier. We got it fried up, and we're going to eat it for supper." And the little boy said, "Well, I got to go home." So he went home. And he just said he had to go home. Well, 2 or 3 days later, he's back down there playing. And my brother called him in and said, "Y'all come on and eat." And he asked him, he said, "Wade, you going to eat?" And he said, "No, sir." He said, "You ain't hungry?" He said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Why don't you eat?" He said, "I don't ever know what y'all going to have down here." So he walked home and ate supper. But
that's the way
my brother said it was, you know, about like frog leg. You know, everybody says, "Oh, everything's like chicken." Well, yeah, it ain't like chicken. He said it's probably about like frog legs when they ate it. But
I've never had it.
I ain't neither. I know a guy. Man, it's funny you mentioned that. I know a guy out in West Oklahoma, Jesse McGregor, and he makes a living catching them and skinning them, selling the skins, selling the meat. And boy, he sent me some videos of some absolute monsters they catch out there. And but anyway, I mean, there's obviously a market for it. Somebody's eating them somewhere.
Yeah. I would try it. Like, I would try it. I've actually had mountain lion before. And it's, you know, white like pork. Of course, now I've heard mixed things about it, but I thought it was decent. I didn't think it was bad. We had a like a wild game banquet, and somebody had brought it into the church, and I don't remember where it come from, but it looked like pork chops is what it looked like.
Yeah.
Heck, it may have been pork chops, and they said it was a cat, but but I eat it, and I'm not. I'll try. I like to try a snake. My brother has, like yours, he's eat it before. When they were in the military, I think they caught a couple and got hard up, and too many Pepsis in them, and
Yeah.
they was frying them things. But I'd like to. I guess I would try it. I guess I'm not too good to.
I just ain't got that hunger yet.
What's too many beans and taters are keeping them skeeters off of you.
That's right. That's right.
So, talking about squirrel, let's talk about some squirrel dogs. Are you have one, or y'all using clays, or what are y'all doing there to catch the squirrels?
Yeah, I'm using Clay's. Clay's got some fasts, and he's got a couple of good ones. One is real good, but that was my first introduction to tree dogs when I was growing up with squirrel dogs. Mm-hmm. And my dad and our family had a line of dogs for a long time, and that line's completely gone now. But that was, we used they were mountain curs, and some of them would have a little feist mixed in here and there. But they were all mostly bobtail. 90% of them were bobtail growing up, and we would hunt them off horses. And these dogs would tree squirrels and bay hogs, and we'd catch hogs and mark them, or we'd kill them in the wintertime and drag them out. But they were very useful. They earned a keep on the place where we didn't have them. It just turned out that some of them were real good pets. And I've talked about one dog in particular. His name was Peanut. That was a bobtail mountain cur. That was my daddy. I swear, he was my dad's favorite son. Is how I describe him. Mm-hmm. But he was a sure enough diehard tree dog, and a good hog dog too.
It's funny you say Peanut, because my Dutchie, my work dog, is called Pinot, and all the detectives make fun of him and call him Peanut.
Yeah.
And I tell them, I said, go ahead, I'll let him out and you pet him while you're calling him Peanut. They all start backpedaling, but that's what they make fun and poke at him all the time, calling him Peanut. I'm like, mm-hmm. He does. In fact, I've got to where I've actually called him that sometimes. I was out on that track the other day, and we were headed back to we headed back to the car, and I called him that, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, don't do that. you had, and something else I want to talk about is you had you talked in your podcast about your lab. Was it Annie?
Anna.
What? Mm-hmm. Tell me about her, because you was talking about that other guy that come in and supposed to have this really nice dog, and you kind of had to learn. He had to learn through his dogs hadn't seen the amount of ducks and stuff that yours did.
Yeah.
And we talk about dog training, and that's a lot of difference in the worlds, and the driving the capping the drives on the dog and stuff, especially when they're stimulated that much. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about her and how she came about, what you did with her. Like, that was pretty interesting when I was listening to that.
She was a black lab, a registered black lab, and she was out of Louisiana. And a friend of mine did a tree planting job for this guy down in Louisiana, this dog trainer, professional dog trainer, lab trainer. And I think he may have done some police K9 stuff too, I believe. But anyway, he was a well-known trainer down there. And this tree planting job that he came up with, I'm not sure the guy kind of got in a bad financial slot there for a few months before he could kind of get his head above water. And he called my buddy that did the tree planting for him and said, look, man, I can't pay you right now. I'm going to have to work something out. And my buddy said, who was just absolute wonderful human being, said, man, don't you train duck dogs? He said, I do. He said, well, give me one. Just give me a trained dog, and we'll call the rest of this job even. And so he did. And he had that dog for about 2 months, and he called me and he said, Brent, I was working at the sheriff's office in Bradley County. during that time, and we were friends. And he called me, said, "I need you to come down here. I want you to look at something." So I drove down there, far end of the county. And he said, "I got this Labrador dog here. It's a duck dog, supposed to be fully trained. You know how to run one, don't you?" I'm like, "Well, sure." He said, "Well, if this thing is worth what it's supposed to be, $6,000." Now this was this would have been about 1993 or 4. So it's gone up in price a lot. So at that time, he said, "This is supposed to be a $6,000 dog, and I need to know if my investment is good." I'm like, "Okay." So I got the dog out, got a bumper, and started giving it a heel and fetch, and found out what her name was. She would go on her name, and then I throwing dummies out and doing hand signals, blind retrieves, and this dog was like a remote control. And I said, this dog is absolutely well worth $6,000, what you paid for her. And he said, "Well, good." He said, "What would you think about hunting her?" I said, "Oh gosh, I'd hunt that dog. Absolutely. Every day of the season." He said, "Well, take her home." And I just, make a long story short, it was she was a year old. We had her for 13 when I got her. She was almost a year old when I got her. And I finished out her training. She was more or less done. I just repeated the stuff that carried on the stuff that their trainer had started. And 12 years later, when she died and we put her in a hole, I thought I was going to have to put my son in there with her.
Mm-hmm.
She was one of the absolute best dogs I've ever hunted over. And it was a weird way to get it. I couldn't have afforded a dog like that. Back then, my salary, I was making, $20,000 a year.
Peanuts.
Yeah, a $6,000 dog, man, that was a car to me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got her and we hunted her, and there's been folks all over the country that's hunted with her, and she made a big impression on a lot of people. I remember my dad told me one time when I was a kid, he said, if you've got something of value that you value and other people will value it, don't ever put a price on it, because there's somebody out there that'll pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really understand what he was talking until one day. She was probably 3 or 4 years old. Excuse me. And we were hunting with some folks. I can't even remember where this guy was at, somewhere in Georgia, I believe. Be a real successful businessman that had come and was hunting there with us. At our guy booked a hunt with some clients of his. So we were duck hunting, hunting them, and we were in the timber, and we were just smashing ducks, and she was retrieving them. And he said, "Boy, I sure would like to have that dog." And I said, "Well, she ain't for sale." And it started. They were there for 3 days. On the third day, when they're getting ready to leave, and this has been going on the whole time. Every time the lull in the conversation came about, he started wanting me to put a price on that dog, and about how much he liked her and he loved. Man, he just followed that dog around all over the cabin, or all over the camp. So they getting ready to leave. They're saddling up, and I'm sitting upstairs with a cup of coffee, and he comes up, and we're talking, and he's paid for his visit and all his clients. He said, "Man," he said, "I'm on one more time." He said, I sure would like to have that dog." And I said, "I know you would. She's not for sale." He said, "What would you take for her?" I said, $10,000. He pulled out his checkbook. He said, "Will you take this right now? $10,000. And started. I said, whoa. Well, there's no way I wouldn't have sold that dog for $1 million. I really wouldn't have. And as bad as I needed the money.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a lesson to me right there. Don't put a price on you don't want to sell, because somebody will pay for it. And there's no doubt in my mind he would have wrote me a check for that dog right there. And all I had to done was load her up in his truck and told her bye. But I got 7 or 8 more years of memories off of that. So that was a lesson learned for me right there.
Yeah, I've done that a couple times. I've priced some young dogs that I had that I thought was ridiculous for what they were worth, and Lord, they about jerked my arm out of socket taking the dog from me. And
Yeah.
I've got rid of 2 good dogs, really good dogs, by that. And you can't replace a dog. If they give you $10,000 right there, you just spent 20 trying to replace her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I got that. I was blessed to get that dog. It was through a friendship and through this man that's a friend of mine that recognized the value of that dog and what a waste it would have been if he'd have just had her around his house as a pet, because she was an absolutely outstanding pet, and there would have been no better pet you could have had. But all that other stuff, all the capabilities that she had and everything, that it would have been an absolute disservice to that dog, to not hunt her and let her do what her natural ability told her to do. I've told 1,000 stories about that dog. My son, Hunter, Drake Hunter is his name, but they were as tight as a human and a dog has ever been at any time. They grew up together. He never remembered a time that she wasn't in our life. And as close as they were, it was wherever he was at, she was at. But wherever he was at in the boat, she was with him in the boat. But as soon as we put her up on the dog stand, he could pet her, you could pet her, I could pet her. She was absolutely oblivious to anything going on around her other than keeping her eyes on the skies, watching for ducks. And she didn't whine, she didn't whimper, she didn't lick on nobody. She was absolutely 100% engrossed and ingrained in doing what she was put on this earth to do. Now, Hunter could stand beside her, and occasionally she would nudge him with her head, but the rest of the time she was looking at the sky, man. It was really cool to watch how focused that dog is. And y'all talk about training dogs on here all the time. Man, you can't train that. They just got it.
That's right.
They got it or they don't. So I've been blessed in having the few dogs that I've had, her being one, and then this coon dog here, that I trained it with the help of a lot of folks, mainly Rex Whiting, my coon hunting buddy, and Michael Roseman. But they have this dog has got a lot of a natural ability, and I more or less just put it in a position to for him to do his thing,
giving him an opportunity.
And then when I praised him, he's like, okay, this is not only do I want to do this, the boss thinks it's a good thing for me to do it, so I'm gonna keep on doing it. So I've had very, very, very little correction on this dog to keep him straight and going straight.
And I want to go back. I want to touch up on what you were talking about on both of your dogs, Waylon and her. But so I'm not in the retriever world much, and that's something we're getting ready to tap into. So you guys listening, if you're retriever fanatics, we are going to tap into some of that stuff here in the next few podcasts. So y'all are going to want to tune in and listen to some of the guests that we got coming on, because it's pretty exciting. But so you got her at a year old. Is that to get a dog of that quality at that young? Is that typical for the retrievers? Did he have a kennel with 5 of those in there and said, "Oh, here you go. Here's my worst one," or they're all the same. Just take your pick. How does that work in the retriever world? Or
man, it's the same. It's just like it's the same. Whether you're training coon dogs or squirrel dogs or cow dogs, the cream's gonna rise to the top. You got always, for an example, an analogy, and one of my favorite analogies is one I actually came up with myself. Jim Kelly is a Hall of Fame quarterback. That dude had like 10, 15, he had a whole passel of brothers. Same mama, same daddy, only one of those guys is in the Hall of Fame. And you would think, well, how come his brothers wasn't there. They played, some of them played football. They were sports, they're good athletes, but only one of them made it to the Hall of Fame, the Football Hall of Fame. And it's the same with these dogs. You'll see it. You get a litter of 10 and you get 2 out of there, or you get 1, or sometimes you get none. It's the dogs that show perception, and the ones that show the signs of being able to understand what you want them to do. The best dog in the world, most dogs, I'd say all dogs that doesn't have some type of mental defect, they want to please whoever the guy is that's feeding them. It's been, and my dad always said he could pick out the best squirrel dog out of a litter when they hit the ground. And he said that the best dog is always going to be the one that gets hunted. Mm-hmm. He said, I guarantee you, mm-hmm. I picked the red one out of all and the rest of them are white. I picked 1 out of 10. If I hunt this one more than the rest of them, all things are the same. There's no, mental defects on one, because they're just like people. They got problems too. But if all things are the same, the one that turns out's the one that gets hunted. And I'm a firm believer in that. And I know there's, it's not no absolutes in animals or training either one, but having the opportunity, putting the opportunity in front of a dog to get out there and do what you want them to do. I think they have an inherent desire to please you. They also have a genetic code that they can't fight and that they can't deviate from. And if a tree dog, you're talking about a tree dog, if they want to go out and naturally trail and tree an animal, all you need to do is establish the parameters of what you're going to allow them to do. Are you going to let them run a deer before they come across a coon track and strike and trail it? Are you going to let them fight at the tree? Are you going to, whatever that you need to correct? To me, that's what my job is to let that dog more or less do his thing. And then I should adjust to how he hunts to make it easier for him to be successful. Michael Roseman, I love that guy, but I promise you, he will tell you, if he cuts a dog, we're training pups, and he cuts a puppy loose, and he goes out there, strikes, tracks, and trees in 10 minutes, and I'm over there jumping, doing cartwheels, and happy about what's going on. He looks at me and like, well, why didn't he do that in 9 minutes instead of 10 minutes? Yeah. So that's just the way Michael is. Me, I'm on the opposite. I'm like, holy cow, this dog did it. And a lot of people are that way. They got to, and I'm not saying that's wrong at all, but I think it's more enjoyable to me. And Michael will tell you the same thing. And then Michael's going to listen to this. He's going to hear it. He's going to be chunking stuff at me for saying this, but he'll tell you the same thing. He's just hard. He wants it always to be better. And that's how he's got such good dogs, is because of that. He's never satisfied with what he's got. He always wants to be better and be better. And he does. He has that, and he's been successful because of that. But to me, man, I'm strictly a pleasure hunter. And what I want to do and what I was able to do with this dog was to turn him loose and hunt him by himself. And I adapted more or less to his style of hunting. We just happened to fit. It was a 1 in a million pick. I looked for 6 months, Heath, for a dog. When I decided I was going to get another coon dog, I looked for 6 months. That dog, and I talked to people on the phone, Waylon was the absolutely only dog I went and looked at. And when I got there and I seen him, I thought, that's my dog right there. And I don't have no idea other than divine intervention of how it came to be. But, I hunted him now. Now, the next dog that I get, I'm always going to compare it to this one. That's going to be hard for me to accept the way this next dog hunts that I get, because I will get another one. He's, like I said, he'll be 4 in August. So it's time to start looking.
Waylon the Wonder Dog hit the lottery when he hooked up with Brent Reaves. I mean, that scoundrel laying back there stretched out on the bed like he owns the place.
Yep, he does own the place. Look at him.
He's snoring. He's snoring over
life.
there. He's gonna have drool all over him. You're gonna have to wash the sheets, Brent.
Yep, for sure. But that is my concept, I guess, of hunting, and I'm sure a lot of people do. It's nothing. I'm not an anomaly. It's nothing new. You got a style that you like, and that's what's gonna keep you either keeping a dog or pushing him on somewhere else where someone else might like it. But I went into this absolutely looking for two things. I want to be able to control that dog, to tell him what to do, and when he treated a coon, I wanted him to stay there till I got there. And that's the only issue. That's the only things that I put down on the list that I needed him to do. The requirements for him to do was to do what I told him when I told him, and I think all that came from having Labradors all those years. And I wanted him to, to be true, to be right. And a case in point was just the other night. Michael and I were hunting up on the White River on some private ground up there, and Waylon got treed across a lake, big old Oxbow Lake, and we just couldn't get around there to him. So we pulled up to where an old boat ramp was and looked across the lake, and sure enough, I could see Waylon. We had the dadgum, I got one in my hunting coat. I can't remember what you call them.
Thermal?
Thermal imager. And we look across there and we can see Waylon, we can see the coon. Well, he's got him. I don't need to go over there. I called him one time. He turned and looked at me. I called him again. He jumped in that lake and swam 185 yards over to where I was at. And I loaded him up, and away we went. Some folks say, oh, man, you need to go to him, or you need to you can't have a dog that handles that good because it'll take some drive away from him. Well, not for Brent. Mm-mm. That's my dog, and I like the way he does that. That's just something that I like. That's what fits my style. That's the reason they make Fords and Chevrolets. Everybody likes something different. And this cat back here coming to me when I call him, that's what I like.
Well, and there's so many things I can touch on there. Well, the first thing is, it's so easy and pleasurable to train a dog, and you're really not training it, that has the natural instinct to do what it's bred to do. You said it, and I've said it numerous times on the podcast, is you just supply the dog with opportunity and you set boundaries. That's it. And looks like you've had two of those. A lot of people ask me about how much obedience is too much. How much is too much? For me, if it's done wrong, then you can shut a dog's drive down. Absolutely. But when it's done correctly, you're not hurting the dog's drive whatsoever. And one of the things that I see, and I follow a bunch of people on Instagram, I follow a bunch of people on Facebook. One of the things that I cannot, and just like you, you have one dog and allows you to do some things that a lot of people don't do or don't want to do, is you're spending every minute that you're home, that dog's in the house with you guys. Mm-hmm. You're spending time with that dog and time with that dog and time with that dog. Somebody has probably got their hands on that dog inside your house the majority of the day.
Yes.
And it shows. You can go hunting with somebody. You can watch these videos and stuff that people post on Instagram. And you can see who spends time with their dogs. And that doesn't take anything. It just takes the time. It takes, and I talk about it too, and I know that me and Chad Reynolds had talked about it on one of the other podcasts. If you take 18 minutes a day, every day, you're doing more than 95% of the people in the world. So
I firmly believe that's true, yeah.
Yeah, and you're spending well more than 18 minutes a day because the dog literally lives with you. Mm-hmm. And it resonates. It makes a world of difference, and I know that everybody can't. I've got 14 dogs. I can't bring them all in the house. But my young dogs come in. My young dogs have been when I woke up this morning, I've got 4 puppies, actually got a 5-month-old and some 3-month-old. The 3 months old have been out of the pen. Now I do live in a farming area. Like my neighbors are great. They're they're far enough away. But they've been out of the pen since I got up this morning at 7 o'clock. I've got them out. I've done a little bit of work with them. They've been running loose all day, and then tonight at dark, I put them back up. And the only reason that I put them up is because I've got a skunk that's up here in the field that's lurking around, and I don't want them catching it. And we have coyotes that are pretty thick at times. Yeah. So I'm just being cautious. That's it. Now my 5-month-old, the Thief, I've got to watch her when I cut her out. But
you got to put some ankle weights on that dog.
Yeah, so I've got to be able to keep an eye on her. She don't run off or anything, but when the girls are at the barn and they're down there, I try to put her up because I don't want her stealing all their stuff. But she's out a big part of the day too, and that to me that helps dogs mature. It lets them explore. It lets them investigate things that I'm not forcing them into, or I'm not making them do that they don't want to do. So anyway, yeah, a hands-on is a majority of training a dog and spending time with it.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, here's the way I look at it. Some folks look at dogs, and there's nothing wrong, whatever. If you're keeping that dog a good place to live and feeding it good and taking care of it. If it gets sick, you take it to the vet, whatever. That's all, in my mind, as far as I'm concerned, you're required to do. Show a little affection. You don't beat them up all the time. Just be good to a dog. But that some folks look at it as a tool. Well, I got a hammer. I got a tool chest in my garage, and I got a hammer in it. I don't bring my hammer in the house and let it sit around. That dog ain't a tool to me. That dog's a part of this family, and it's more enjoyable. We love and sharing the time with our pets, with our dogs, because we're all dog people. If we were hammer people, we'd be toting hammers around in the house all the time. But to me, that dog is not a tool. While I use it like one when I'm out hunting, but to me, I never hunt by myself, because people say, well, you going hunting by yourself, or you like to hunt by yourself? I'm like, I ain't never by myself. I got my dog. So, and that's just time that we share together. So it's good to be able to have somebody else to go with you. But sometimes, man, I just like sitting out in the woods and just me and old Waylon just kicking it around. So I get a whole lot more out of it that way. There would be a missing part of my life if it didn't involve these dogs. It makes my life richer by doing it, because my wife could absolutely care less if he ever hunted another minute. She don't care. She just loves that dog, and it's just part of what we do. It's part of what we do. He will get a little rambunctious every now and then. She's like, you need to take this dog hunting and let him run some energy off. So she really likes it when I go hunt with Michael, because Michael, that fool, don't know when to come home. It's usually 2:00 in the morning before I ever get home. And then Waylon, he lays around
for
like
2 days.
For 2 days. He's just knocked out.
Yeah.
She don't have to worry about him going to stick his head in the dishwasher.
Now, wait a second. Now, when he gets out of them swamps and them, whatever y'all call them down there, do they give that dog a bath every day?
He don't get a bath every day. No, but he gets cleaned up. This dog has got it made, man. He don't get a bath every day, but he gets a bath occasionally, and that's a lot of it. Sometimes we just rinse him off, but he's clean when he comes in the house.
But you were talking about dogs being, just a part of life, and
yeah.
And I was thinking, that fits your title of your podcast. That's just a part of country life. Like everybody, most everybody, I guess you can't categorize everybody, but most everybody in the country has a dog or two.
Yeah.
Like growing up for me, it was the same. I mean, I was raised on a small farm, and we always had a dog by our side. Always.
Yeah. There's never a time of my life from the time my feet hit the planet that we didn't have dogs, hunting dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't big on pets. We didn't have like Jack Russells. I got a Jack Russell right now.
Got a Tasmanian devil.
Yeah, we didn't have those. We had dogs that were utilitarian. They were performing a function.
Right.
But that we also, loved and treated as pets. But as far as a dog that was eating at the Reaves house, he was performing a function of some type.
He better earn his grub.
Exactly. He had to earn his groceries.
Yeah, I'm with you. But then you get the girls involved, and then it don't matter if they're productive or not. Like, it's staying, you can go get another one, and then it don't work out, and it's staying, and then you go get another one, and you end up like me with 14 stinking dogs out here.
Yeah.
And 3 of them's worth keeping, the rest of them ain't worth frying pan.
You just described Rex Whiting's life right there. That's it. That's his life.
Well, Brent, I know I've taken up enough of your time. Plus, I know you're busy. But I appreciate you getting on here and catching up. And, man, I mean, we listen to your podcast, and it's great. And when we talked the other day, I mean, I think one of the things that, we take for granted, and you've kind of tapped into it, is, this is how we grew up. We grew up doing the exact things you talk about. I mean, that was a way of life. Mm-hmm. And I think, the older generation, which was our age, it all resonates with us. And the younger generation, like, they're intrigued by it and wish they knew about it.
Yeah, that's the appeal. I looked at MeatEater showed me some statistics, man, and a large part of the people, the demographics of the people that watch this are 20 years younger, or that listen to me are 20 years younger than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And they think it's kind of an anomaly, a guy talking about this kind of stuff. Well, you can't swing a dead cat in Arkansas and not hit somebody just like me.
That's right.
There's more people. I know more people like me than I know people that ain't like me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a bunch of folks.
Yeah.
So I think it's just having the opportunity to talk about it. Anybody could do it. I just happened to be the one that was blessed to be in the position at the right time to be able to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, doing a phenomenal job with it. Keep it up, and we'll keep listening. And like I said, I appreciate you coming on and chit-chatting. And like I said, we didn't get a lot of dog training done. We talked some dogs, but it's always good to catch up.
Well, I want you to get down here when it cools off, because I can tell you now, I'm not coming to the mountains to hunt. I'll come to fish with you.
Well, come on.
I ain't coming to hunt. I ain't coming to hunt up there unless we can ride to the tree, because that's what me and Michael do.
Well,
we ride to the tree, buddy.
Can't promise you. I can't promise you that. I can get you close, maybe. Maybe.
I've been in the mountains, and being close to something don't necessarily mean it's easy.
It's all downhill until you have to come back to the truck. That's what happens.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
All right, Brent. Thank you for helping us teach, train, and just learn about country life.
Hey, just have fun.
Yeah.